Hello there, this is Carlo. Welcome to another JetStrike tutorial. So we're going to be doing some realistic flight simulation scenes. I've got sort of no example to show you, so what we're going to do is we're just going to wing it and come up with a great composition, or hopefully at the end of the tutorial. So obviously you're going to need a couple of things. Firstly, you're going to need JetStrike, which is available from videocopilot.net. You're also going to need the flight kit, which comes with all these bonus features, and obviously you're going to need Elements 3D. Okay, so let's get cracking. So first of all, we're going to create a new composition. I'm going to keep it 1080p, 10 seconds long, and click OK. Now, first of all, we're going to import some background images. We're going to get these from our Flight JetStrike resource pack. And I'm going to select this one. So what I'm going to do first, I'm just going to rename this Sky, and I'm just going to click on open, click on that, click on open, and then just import that into our scene like so. Right, now I'm going to make this a 3D layer, and all I'm going to do is bring it back into 3D space. This will just give us a lot more room to work with. Then all I'm going to do is rescale it back up like so. Now I'm also going to get my comp and drop it into my comp folder like so, and drop my sky map just below that like so. So now I've got a bit of an area sort of like to play around with and animate into my scene like so. Okay, so again, I'm going to make this a 3D layer. I'm going to go Effects, I'm going to go to Distort, and then I'm going to come down to Corner Pin, like so. I'm going to open up my effects window, my corner pin. I'm going to highlight all these selections, and we're going to make a keyframe. Then what we're going to do is we're going to come up to the corners, and we're just going to drag this one just before it ends here. We're going to come down to the bottom lower corner here, move this here, we're going to come up to this one here and bring it in just about there, and then we're going to bring this one to just so it doesn't go over this sort of sequence here like so. We are going to get our timeline, drag it all the way to the end, and all we're going to do in reverse is bring these corner pins back to the start like so. Bang. So now when we RAM preview this, we should have a nice moving background. So let's just RAM preview this in real time, and then we'll go from there. We'll try and get everything done in real time so you guys can follow as well. Have a drink of coffee, have a bite of your biscuit. So what I'll quickly do, guys, I'll quickly pause it while it's RAM previewing, and then we'll get back to it as soon as it's completed. Okay, so that's nearly finished. Right, so that's done. So as you can see, we've got a nice sort of moving background without the use of any sort of cameras in the scene. But we are going to add a camera just to add an element of realism to the scene as well. Okay, so let's drag this back to the start. We're going to close all our bits and bobs here, and then we're going to create a camera. So we're going to go layer, new camera, We're going to keep it 50mm. Make sure it's set to two node camera, and we're just going to click OK with that. Now we need to create a new solid, and we're just going to call this elements. Right, so make it comp size, click OK. We're going to right click, go to effects, video copilot, elements. Right, we're going to go into our scene setup, and we're going to select a jet from our JetStrike pack. So I'm going to go with the I think we're going to go with the combat jet. It's a pretty cool jet, and I'm just going to sort of zoom in and zoom back out again, and I'm just going to play around with the setting. Let's turn that environment map on, select our glass, come down, and I'm just going to make this a bit more see-through so we can sort of see our pilot. Oh, that's too see-through. Let's bring that up to about 20, so we've got a clear view of our pilot within our jet. So I'm going to click OK on that. So we've got our jet in our scene now. Okay, so I'm going to close that. Now what we need to do, first mistakes a lot of people make, think they can animate the jet in JetStrike by using the camera, which technically you can, but more than likely you're just basically animating the scene rather than the jet itself. So we want to animate the jet and have some more a lot more freedom to move the jet where we want within our scene. So I'm just going to bring this up, and I'm just going to go to draft, and that will basically help with our render, make it a little bit more fluid when we're moving our jet around. And then before you render, we're going to go to full render afterwards. So let's open up our particle look, and these are all basically our controls. We're going to open up particle rotation, and what we're going to do, we're just going to play around with the movement of our jet, and basically put it into position. So let's have a little play around. So we're going to have our particle size, so we're just going to bring it up just a bit bigger. I'm trying to work on sort of like a lower resolution so we can work a bit better as well. I am rendering V-Ray composite at the moment in Maya, so I do apologise if this is a bit laggy, but I'm rendering a 4K scene at the moment, which is a bit crazy. Okay, so let's play around with the movement of our jet. Let's bring this to about here, so there's a bit of a tilt on the jet as well. Let's open up our particle replicate, and let's just play around with our rotations, and let's play around with our z-axis. Play around with that, and let's just move this where we basically want. Now what we're going to do before we actually get into the serious sort of moving around of the jet, we're going to go and we're going to create basically a null object within our scene. So let's just close this for now, and let's open up our group 1, and let's just scroll down until we find, wherever you are, create a group null. So we're going to open this up, and then we're just going to create a group null which is going to attach itself to our jet. Let's just name that jet so we know what our null is. Now with this is going to allow us to move the jet more freely within JetStrike, which is great, and that's basically what we want. So let's just play around with our scene. So particle size, that's our rotation, face camera, so we can get it faced a bit better, and let's bring this jet into position. Let's just bring it around like sort of like that. Bring the nose up to about there, and let's just rotate it up like that, and let's just bring that sort of a little bit more sort of straight. Maybe sort of bring the wing, sorry, level that out a bit and bring the wing just slightly out, so it's quite flush, like you can see. Let's just go to full res so we have a proper sort of look at that. Okay, so now we sort of like got that like that. What we're going to do is we're going to sort of add some lighting to the scene. So let's go to new light, and we're going to create an ambient light first, and I'm just going to use my dabber just to create my ambient light, and we're going to put that to about 550 and just click OK. And then all we're going to do is drop this down, and we're going to bring that down. So it's just so we can play with it and see basically what we're doing. Let's knock that down to about 150 actually. Right, so that might be a bit harsh actually. Let's go to 50. Maybe a bit higher, like so. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Okay, so now we're going to create a new light, and we're going to create a point light, and we're just going to make this a little bit warmer, like so, and click OK. Have that to about 500. Just click OK, and then don't worry about this. If this happens, what we're going to do is we're going to open up our transform light options, and we're just going to play around with our intensity. It's just, I always put it higher so I can sort of drag this stuff down and play around with the look of the scene as well, and just get it looking quite nice and quite realistic, as you can see. So that's okay like that. So now let's create another light, and let's make it a spotlight, and basically let's put that to about 50 or so. And what we're going to do is we're going to hit, sorry, let's close that there. We're just going to play around with our axis of our light, maybe bring that up a bit, like so. Bring this along and get this bit here. It just adds a bit of, you know, it just makes it look pretty awesome actually. So let's hit there, let's hit open, and let's just bring this down just a bit, maybe a bit more, and let's just get our connection on there, and just bring that down there. Right, so it just gives you a nice little sort of, bring the intensity down to say 20. Right, okay, so that's pretty cool as well. Okay, so we're going to close all this now, and what we're going to do is we're just going to do a bit of color correction. So I'm going to go to my sky map, go to effects, color correction, and then I'm going to come down to photo filter, and I'm just going to switch that on and just keep that to the tones it's got now. And then I'm going to do elements, effects, color correction, and I'm just going to throw a photo filter on my jet as well. As you can see, it's blended in very, very nicely within our scene. Okay, so now let's animate our jet. Okay, so let's come down to half, and then obviously because we've created our jet and we've got our null, I'm going to open up this, my transform, and basically I've got all my rotations, how I want my jet to move within the scene, all here. So what we need to do is just play around with your jet and basically get it moving the way you sort of want it to move, if that makes sense. So what I normally do is I'll start down the bottom here, bring it back, bring it down, so the anchor point, hit keyframe here, bring it to the end of the scene, and just bring it back so it's sort of going into sort of mid space, like so, like this. Okay, so let's bring that back and let's have a little round preview. So while this is RAM previewing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause it and come straight back to it. It's normally quite quick. It's like I say, I'm rendering in 4K at the moment in V-Ray, so I am lagging just a little. Well, I'm not lagging, but I think I'm doing quite well, seeing as I'm rendering a 45-minute scene in my own V-Ray. So let me just pause it quickly, and I'll come back to you as soon as this has completed. Okay, so that's rendered. As you can see, our plane's moving quite nicely into the scene, but it's moving sort of away from the scene, as you can see, so it doesn't look too great. It looks a bit crap, as you can see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some more animation with the jet. So let's just bring this up here, and then I can sort of select my jet, and I'm going to sort of play around with the movement of the jet. So I'm going to select my x-axis. I'm going to move that to the end as well, and then all I want to do is basically I'm going to sort of play with the movement of the jet just to give it some scale and some, you know, like it's not sort of like a robot, if that makes sense. So my Z, I'm gonna turn that up a bit, like so. Now it's not too bad. So what I'm going to do now is I'm not sort of happy with you know, the way my sort of jet looks, so I'm gonna fix that by going into our scene setup in elements and just basically tarting up the look of the jet. So let's open up our elements, like so. Let's select elements, go back into our scene setup, and I'm just going to play around with the body really, and I think I'm just going to bring the diffuse up a bit, specular up. I'm going to make it a lot more shiny than it is. I'm going to bring my ambient up. Let's scroll down and see what else we've got. So let's bring our intensity up as well. Let's bring our Fresnel up. Let's make it a little bit more sort of a grey sort of colour. Smoothness is 100%. I'll just bring our threshold up, and let's bring our glow amount up as well, and let's have a look at our pilot. Pilot was fine. cinematic like so, and just click OK and see where we go from there. Okay, so that's looking a little bit more better. As you can see, that's not too bad. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do some color correction on this. So I'm going to go to new adjustment layer, and then I'm going to go effects, and I'm going to go to color correction, and I'm going to go to curves, and I'm just going to go to the green, and I'm just going to bring the green up just a touch. It just gives it that sort of cinematic sort of look as well. When you do it like this, bring it down maybe a bit. Now let's go back up just a touch like so, and this sort of gives it a cinematic sort of feel to it, so makes it look pretty good. So what we're going to do is we're going to render this out now, see what we got, and then add some sound effects and go from there really. So I'll pause it while we render the scene. Actually what we can do is if we select Jet, we can add some motion blur as well. Just gives it a little bit of a, let's just go down to materials, and let's just see what happens when we switch that off. Take that off as well. That was pretty good. Spectral intensity is pretty good. Metal is at 100%. Yeah, that's looking pretty awesome. So let's just render this scene out. So if you've never done this before, we're going to go to add to render queue, and the best way I like to render is I render in H.264. I'm going to select 1080p 29 frames per second, which is 1080. Click OK. I'm going to Jet tutorial, tighten the title. I always save it to my desktop so it's easier for me to find, and then I'm just going to click on render and let that just render out. So the whole scene will render to your desktop, and then I'll show you how we add our sound effects to that. Next tutorial what I'm going to try and do is show you guys how to do the heat displacement on the jet engine and have some smoke trails as well from the back. That's going to be a next tutorial. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this now guys while this is rendering, and then I'll get back to you once this has finished its render. Okay, so our scene's rendered, so if we just play it back, we've got some pretty nice fluid movements, as you can see. So now what I'm going to do, I thought I'd do this first to show the scene, is render it out properly, so we can add some audio, but we can add audio into our scene via After Effects, so we're going to do that right now. So within the flight kit you'll also have some jet sound effects, jet FX sound, which comes with JetStrike, the flight kit. So I'm just going to test them out as it goes. So I'm going to just open up our go to our JetStrike scene. So open our sound effects up, and here we can see we've got a few selection of jet FX sounds. So all we can do is basically just listen to the various sound effects. So if we look at our scene, our jet's just basically flying really. It's not really doing any supersonic or anything like that. So let's just have a listen. So really nothing's happened there. Let's just turn our sound up just a bit. See, that's not a bad sort of sound. Because our jet's not really doing any sort of supersonic, so let's try this one. This one's better, this one's quite good. So let's add that into our project and just throw that in, and then I'm just going to drop it below our sequence, which will give us a perfect sort of timeline within that, and then we're going to render it out and listen to how it sort of sounds. But yeah, a pretty sort of realistic sort of scene. I mean, it's down to you guys whether you're not, you know, your sort of color tones. What I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to just select my elements. I'm going to go up to effects, I'm going to go up to blur and sharpen, and I'm just going to add a fast blur to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move my jet. Let's just bring this down to half. So when my jet's sort of moving up, let's go to maybe a little bit more, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open that up, and I'm just going to hit a keyframe, and I'm just going to move it to about there, or say to about here, and I'm just going to bring the blurriness just up a little bit. Let's just RAM preview that bit. It just gives the jet element that it's large, so it's going to have some sort of a blur as it sort of moves. It just makes it look a lot better. So we're just going to RAM preview all this to see how we go. So like I say, I do apologise about the lagginess. Like I say, I am rendering in 4K at the moment, a 40-minute scene in Maya, so but I wanted to get this tutorial out, so I don't think I'm doing too bad. It's going too bad. I didn't even think I'd be able to do any sort of comp work while it was doing its thing, even though I'm on a HP Z820. When I'm rendering, it's very sort of difficult to, or if I'm exporting in 4K, a Maya renderer with sort of like everything you can imagine is turned on. But the system ain't doing too bad. So what I'm going to do is, guys, I'm just going to pause it here, wait for this to finish its sequence, and then we can have a quick look. Okay, so let's just play that back and see how we're getting on. So it's coming along alright. So we've got our plane moving, and what we can do is we can actually use the camera to sort of zoom in, zoom out if we want. I think we'll sort of do that next, because we've got the movement of the jet, which is separate to our background. We're basically free to do whatever we want with our camera. So that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. So let's do that now. So let's just stop this and say we can sort of start from here. We can click on our camera, hit P on the keyboard for position, P on the stopwatch, and then we can sort of move our scene to say about here. And if we want to, we click on our camera and we could just zoom in a bit, like so. That'll do nicely. Okay, so now we've got not only our jet sort of moving in 3D space. If we start the RAM, sort of do a RAM preview actually. We could basically see our sort of jet moving up, and then our camera sort of zooming in to sort of catch up with where our jet is. So that also adds a nice element as well. And obviously you've got to remember this, you know, this is a camera, this guy's filming this jet, so we might need to do a little bit more modification to our camera footage as well. Like I say, I'm just winging this. We can sort of do this together, and you know, once it's done, we've got ourselves a nice little bit of animation. But I think it's more fun to do tutorials like this, because once it's completed and you've got the final product, it don't look too bad. So as you can see now, as it's in our RAM preview, we've got our keyframe here, and now our camera's slowly moving into our jet as our jet is basically lifting higher into the air, which just gives it a nice bit of realism. Like I said before, what I'm going to try and do is do a tutorial basically on the afterburners, and we need some streams of smoke coming out the back of the jet as well. That'll be another tutorial. Hopefully I'll do that this week. And what we do is we'll do it in the second part. I'll make this the first part, and on the second part of the tutorial we'll work on the afterburner, and we'll work on the jet streams coming out the sides, and maybe a missile launch as well on top of that. So as you can see, that looks looking pretty good. And obviously, you know, when you add the sound effects as well, it does really add to the scene. Okay, so this is all in real time now, and we're nearly finished. See the jets going up, looking pretty smooth. And once we've obviously, like I say, we've added the jet streams onto this, coming out the back of the jet, both wings, like streaming across, and we've got a bit of, you know, afterburn smoke coming out the back. It's going to look a hell of a lot better, hell of a lot more realistic as well. Okay, so this should be ready to go. Okay, so as it's going back, our camera's powered in. Not bad at all. So that's looking pretty good. So now we've got that sort of thing, we can come here, and then we can. Oh, I didn't want to highlight all that stuff. Let's select our camera, AA. Let's go to AA on the keyboard. Scroll down, and then we can sort of turn our depth of field on as well, which will give us a lot more depth. And we can sort of keyframe that from, say, about here, and then we'll do the stopwatch and bring this to the end, and we can select this to on, and we can sort of bring our focal distance just up slightly, like so. That gives us a lot more depth of field as well. And then we can play with our zoom of our camera. This is basically, you know, it's based on taste at the end of the day. What you do with it is entirely up to you. So let's just bring this back to about here, and as it's going in, let's play with our zoom here. So let's select the keyframe, bring this all the way up here, and let's just bring this slightly more closer there. And this is adding a lot more versatility to the scene as well. Okay, so let's scroll down, see what else we got. Let's bring the saturation up to about 5, let's say 13. Aspect ratio is fine. Okay, so that's basically it really. Actually, what I wanted to do is let's bring this up to full res. Okay, let's shrink this like so. That's not shrinking it. What am I doing? I guess it is. And let's just click on our elements and make sure our blur is selected as well, because obviously we've added a blur onto that scene. So that's it really. So what I'm going to do, guys, render it out. Let's look at the final product, and then next tutorial we're going to be adding like the streams of what do you call it, smoke out the back of the wings, maybe let loose a couple of missiles and some afterburn as well. So I'll be back as soon as this is done. Okay, so we've completed our combat. Let's just play it back and have a look what we got. So that's not too bad. So that's stage 1 of the tutorial, or part 1. Part 2, like I said, we're going to be adding the streams at the back and the afterburner, and just doing some serious colour correction just to make this look more realistic. So before we go, what I want you to do, guys, is just basically select the lot. We're going to go to layer. We're just going to pre-compose. I just call it Jet. So you know, basically all this is in one comp and it basically can't be messed up now. And then just save it for when we do the second part of the tutorial. So obviously that's file, save as, and just name it whatever you want. Well, I'm going to call mine Jet, and I'm going to stick up my tutorial and save it on my desktop and save it. So thanks for watching part 1. Look forward to see you guys in part 2. Where we'll be making this look a lot more realistic. Thanks for listening, guys. See you in part 2.